Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of TLC's Webinar Wednesday series. My name is Jameson Reynolds. I'm the Director of Marketing Strategy with the Library Corporation, and thank you for joining us today. We're actually doing something a little bit different today than we have with our previous webinars. This is actually, I guess, could be best described as a mini-series within the series of the types of content we've been bringing to you up to this point. Similar to some of our other Webinar Wednesdays, where we've brought on guest panelists to share their workflows and experiences, we are introducing a new mini-series dedicated to the voices of the pandemic to provide a platform to libraries and librarians throughout the industry. These standalone webinars each highlight a different perspective from the pandemic, varying based on the communities they serve, the funding they receive, and the collections they house. You'll find throughout this mini-series that each library's voice, has a unique experience, but are brought together with common themes, shared experiences, problems, solutions, and funny stories. As libraries face additional challenges in the coming years, it is important to find commonality among libraries and the industries that support them. Our first webinar voice is that of the rural library. Here to host this mini-series is Melissa Powell, our customer service manager. And Melissa, please introduce your panel and tell us a little bit about rural libraries during the pandemic.
Thank you, Jameson. As Jameson said, I am the customer success manager for TLC. I'm not just the customer success manager, I'm also a librarian, and I wanted to take the opportunity to promote voices of librarians, customers and non-customers. TLC is all about partnering with the library. So today, for rural libraries, we have invited two people who are very familiar with rural libraries and what they have been facing this year. Both are past presidents of the Association of Rural Libraries, Association for Rural and Small Libraries. Judy Calhoun is the Regional Director for the Southeast Arkansas Regional Library and also a TLC customer. Judy did start out as a solo librarian in a very small library in Arkansas and has lots of good stories. Kieran Hixon is Technology and Digital Initiatives Consultant with the Colorado State Library. He is passionate about rural libraries and communities, especially where technology is concerned. In fact, he's coming to you from his off-the-grid home in the middle of nowhere. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Sorry about that. Having little technical difficulties myself. Okay. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys 4 basic questions about rural libraries for our attendees. I'm going to start, and just to remind attendees, you can put in questions at any point. We will be taking them. So to start off, I would like to know, what is one myth about rural libraries that you would like to debunk for other librarians? Judy, would you like to go first?
Sure. I thought about this a little while, and so I guess one of the first things I want to say about that is you don't have to have letters behind your name to be a professional. And so there are lots of great librarians out there who have never got a master's degree in library science, and doesn't make them any less professional than somebody who does. So I think that's a big myth.
Yep. Kieran?
I think we do all the same things as any library anywhere. We just do it with fewer people and fewer resources.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're behind the times. I think we're actually on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
We have the same problems as big libraries.
Right. Well, what would you say puts you on the cutting edge?
So, well, I think of my analogy would be like big libraries are kind of like cruise ships, and when they decide to shift course, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of white papers and committees, and when you're 2 people working in a library, there's not a whole lot of committees because it's the 2 of you working in the library. So we're able to change quicker, make decisions quicker, change course quicker, try something, it doesn't work, try something else. We're able to kind of zigzag a lot easier. And I think that's really been clear in the pandemic, that we've been, like, well, okay, you can't have people come in the library. What do we try? Well, let's try this. Oh, okay, that no, so, okay, let's try this. Oh, hey, that one worked. Like let's I think it's a lot more nimble. Our
Nimble, I
responses have
like
been a lot
that.
more
Yeah.
nimble.
That's a
And
good.
Judy, I wanted to comment on when you said that about you don't have to have letters after your name. The fact that I've always worked in small libraries myself, and they assume everybody in the library is a librarian. That's fine. You work in
And
the
they
library,
are.
and they are. I mean, that's the thing, is that you do learn all of that. That's what workshops and conferences and things like that are for. So I think that's a really good point that people don't realize. A lot of rural librarians do have a lot of experience in education. They've just done it all themselves.
That's exactly right. And the heart of librarianship is customer service. It's a service industry.
Yeah.
And so it's just doing the best, giving your best to your patrons. And so
Exactly.
that's the good thing about being a small library. You kind of get, your community, you know what works, you know what they need. So
Right.
don't have to have letters behind your name to get that.
Exactly. Okay, so now I want to get into the actual this year. And Kieran, you touched on it a little bit with, that's what you've done during the pandemic. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge for rural libraries during the pandemic? And how have they been working with it, solving it, or, that sort of thing? So Kieran, we'll just start with you this time.
Well, I mean, funding is a big thing when the economy goes down in small and rural libraries. That's a big thing. And I think I don't know, the stuff spread in rural areas. It's didn't come as quick as it hit I think some of the bigger areas first, and it's come later, and it's the effects are the same, and the masking up and all the safety precautions are the same, but I think we had a little bit longer to kind of adjust to it.
Mm,
And I think some of the challenges have been figuring out how to serve our communities and serve them well without a whole lot of staffing. So now we have two people, trying to maintain the hours or the services of a library, when service looks a lot different, when going in the building might not be such a good idea, when doing curbside is kind of, I don't know, kind of
yeah, curbside
a
would be
lot of
very easy with
adjustments.
just two people working every day.
Well,
Right.
it made you also look at your building in a different way too, because you had to think about seating, spacing out seating, what seats. Oh goodness, these are cloth. What are we going to do here? We don't want to be cleaning those and then you've got to
Right.
store all that stuff or put it where patrons can't get to it. And then I have 9 libraries in my system. I've had all staff, one tested positive, and all three were we had to close the library completely down. We're going to have to close it for 2 weeks. Luckily, I was able to open it back up for a week by another staff from another county came in and ran the library for us. So, but I mean, when it takes one, it can take them all. And so
Mhm.
there's your service to your community completely shut
The
down for.
average rural the average rural library is 3,000 square feet, I think, something like that. So if you're thinking, 3,000 square feet, and you're thinking about spacing, and you got room for books, and it's different. It's just different.
Not much. I mean, yeah. And as it was said, taking chairs out, then where do you put these chairs? Where are you got to put all this stuff you're not using? I mean, we have study rooms and meeting rooms that are full of stuff.
Right.
Right.
So, and thinking of that on the different things, the big challenges of you always have the challenge in a rural library anyway, reaching all of your community. So I know a lot of rural libraries have different things like mail programs where they mail books, things like that.
Mhm.
So how did it make it even harder? Because you're not going to necessarily have them come in for curbside, or they're out on farms or wherever they're located. So what kind of changes for that? I mean, you already had an impediment, and now it's been kind of amped up because of a pandemic.
I think for us, well, it's the quarantine of the material, because when somebody checks it out, then it's got to be in quarantine for 72 hours. And we only have that one copy. So it's like, what? I'm going to wait for that book. So that's been kind of difficult explaining to people why they have to wait on that. I also have 11 nursing homes and assisted living that we take a large print collection, we rotate it. Well, they won't let us in. So those patrons are not even getting new, they're cut off. We've not been to them since March. So yeah, so that's been a little different.
I hadn't thought of that. Wow.
Yep.
So as far as, and I know a lot of our people have been calling in, a lot of our customers have called in about digital services, that they're really, amping up. We had to do a lot of work to get people, because they couldn't come in to get a library card, they had to do online borrower registration and then all of that. So have you seen an uptick in your communities? I don't know how much in rural used a lot of digital. It seems to be a perfect fit, but I'm not sure. So can you comment on that as far as the pandemic and prior?
I think we have more desire for use of it. The hard thing, and we're trying, I think a lot of the libraries in my state for sure, a lot of the libraries, we've gone and made extra resources that are digital available. When the first part of the quarantine happened, we had like extra resources that other like vendors had made for available for free that usually aren't, that we were able to put up on websites. The hard thing comes is broadband doesn't really happen everywhere. And I have counties in our state that, even 40% of the county can't get, like literally couldn't buy at any price, any internet. So, your services to them, it doesn't matter how many digital books, how many ebooks you got. It doesn't matter because you've already eliminated them, you've already, so a lot of it's about access and the digital divide. A lot of the libraries I serve can't even get what's considered broadband. So that's like the 25 down, 3 up. They can't get that fast. Like it's just not available. There's no infrastructure for that. So yeah, like the digital collections are great, and folks that can use them, I think that's a real good benefit. But we have to be careful about who we're leaving behind and who doesn't have access in that way at all.
Yeah, we have a lot of patrons that just come to the library just to download stuff on their own stuff because of the Wi-Fi speed it's better here than it is at home. So that's been
So there's a whole section of our library population that even it took not just the books, but it took the digital abilities as well, because it's their only internet access is what I'm hearing.
Well, and it's made a challenge for the rural librarians too, because now everything is the digital access, learning how to do virtual story times and webinars and stuff. And it's like, they've had to quickly adapt, which they do and have very well, but it's to keep on top of it for patrons,
One of the best stories I've heard is of a librarian like having to teach on the fly how to use Zoom so that they could screen share to help the patron then fill out their unemployment forms. Like you have to train somebody so that you can train somebody. Just, like, yeah. And we're doing it.
And that's the thing. I mean, that's what librarians do. We talked about the front line. I remember when a lot of our libraries were starting to open again, our customers, and they were talking about that, like, hey, we're just like the frontline workers now because we're having to deal with all those things of, jumping through those hoops and things. So, but yeah, I know that that's been an issue for us. I'm trying to do things like this with a lot of our customers, and just having had our annual users group, a lot of our librarians are like, hey, I know I can do it now virtually because we've been doing this now.
Right, right.
Yeah, I was able to help my daughter do Zoom when, because she's a speech pathologist at a school. And then when they went to virtual, she said, do you know anything about this Zoom thing? And I'm going, yes, yeah, I'm good, you're good. So, I was able to walk her through. I said, you got it. So.
Well, I think that
When
brings
you
us to, oh yeah, keep going, Kieran.
that quote, and I forget who it's by, that the librarians are in this with a tsunami of information coming at people. Librarians are putting on the water wings on people and teaching them how to swim,
Yeah.
and that's really clear when kids are having school over the internet, and people are
Yeah.
having to do more things and everything in Zoom or on technology. It's
Right.
putting water
That's,
wings on people.
I like that quote. I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one. I like that.
I forget who it's by.
Well, I think that's a really good transition into my next question, which is, what is the next transformation you see coming for rural libraries related to everything we've been through in the last year?
There's a couple things I see. The first is that what I've been seeing for the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years is a trend where libraries are only having their Wi-Fi available while the building is open. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them say that's, maybe the police in the town are like not cool with people hanging out in the parking lot, or, like that. But when it's the only anchor institute in an area that
Mm-hmm.
has any sort of Wi-Fi, and as a culture we're starting to slide more online, I think that's going to start changing. I see that as a transformation, and I also see, how we've been doing this curbside stuff, and we've been, people have been less able to browse a collection and more willing to have a mystery bag full of mystery books, like kind of style. I'm wondering if that will be part of the transformation for libraries. Is that more customized service, or for picking books, and more of those kinds of trends, more personalized service, more make an appointment kind of moments.
Concierge librarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like that. So my thoughts on this, and I got to thinking about it because I thought, what are we doing now that's kind of different? And one is, I think we're going to start using more outdoor space. That was one of the things we started taking things outside, like we installed story walks. We had I Spy games. We had the sidewalk obstacle courses going on. Some of my libraries have done some small story times outside. I know some other librarians have, because they can spread them out. So I think we'll actually see I think that'll come, I think that will be more and more available. I think we're going to see collection budgets kind of shift in the way we spend things. More digital, but more, I don't know. I just kind of think there'll be a little shift on that. But I also think there's going to be a lot more, or I hope it will, because that's one thing about being a regional library. I think there'll be more partnerships and more collaboration hopefully between small and rural libraries. That's the one thing. My system in Arkansas was the very first regional library. Next year we'll turn 75 years old.
Wow.
And the Arkansas laws on forming regional libraries was actually patterned after this region. So it is a true regional where all of our money goes together and we share our resources. And that's really good, because the county that I was in initially was one of the poorest in our region. And we were able to get services and material because the other counties shared their resources. So it makes sense when you're small and rural to form those partnerships.
We're libraries, we share. That's one thing we're real good at.
Yeah.
Well, we are seeing a lot more of that, of the independent libraries coming together and sharing in different forms, staying independent and being part of a regional system, or taking advantage of, statewide systems and things like that. So yeah, to see that as something that gets a little bit bigger, a little more widespread would be very
It'd be a
interesting.
great thing for TLC to think about.
Oh, we have been. You know it. No, and that is something that it does affect the vendors very much. I mean, this is, one of the impetus behind this being, we're not just a vendor. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it's not all about money. It's about helping the industry and advocating for libraries and knowing more about what the rural library needs and what the urban library needs and the school library. And I think it's just very important that the voices are heard, basically. And I think in this format, and we're all forced to be in our homes and offices away from each other, and people are more willing to get together like this. There was something you said about outdoor spaces, and it was something that I had noticed just a couple of years ago. A lot of library architects are starting to do that as part of new buildings. So that
the building we have now, we have an outdoor screen porch, but we also have a garden and area so that we can do outside activities out there. So
yeah,
it's very nice. Yeah.
Like I said, cutting edge. Rural libraries, cutting edge. So what is great about rural libraries? I know it's such a broad question. Of course, you love rural libraries, so everything's great. But what would you really like to promote and share? And it might even be an opportunity to advocate. What do you want other librarians and even people in the industry to promote and share about rural libraries?
There's this really weird statistic that I found a few years ago that it was a survey of rural librarians, and I think it was in 2007, so it's pretty old. But when the respondents were asked if they intended to stay in that library for their entire career, 96% said yes.
Yep.
And I think that speaks volumes right there. Like there's the average salary for a director is just around $32,000 a year. And yet 96% of them are going to stay in that job. So you have to go, okay, so it's not money, right? Obviously not money.
For the money.
Yeah. So what is it? And I think it's something about the community and being part of your community and being part of a community that, there's a good chance that every single one of the people in your town. There's a good chance that if you don't know their names, you probably know their dads or their moms. And if you don't know their dads or their moms, you probably know their face. If you saw them somewhere, you'd go, I can't remember your name, but it's, I don't know. What do you think, Judy?
Yeah, well, we really are the heart of the community. I mean, that's what we are, and we're more important more now today than we ever were. And you're right. When you work in your small library, one of my smallest ones, I actually worked 2 small libraries when I started. I worked one on Saturday in another little town. I was only there 3 hours, but there was no phone, no bathroom.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what time the few people that would come, I knew exactly what time they would come every day, every Saturday. I could like clockwork. I'd go, or I'd call if something, I mean, couldn't call, but like, something's wrong with it out here today. But you do get to know them. I've been with my system for 27 years, so I will retire. I've not been in the same library, but I've worked for this system, and I will retire from this system. So there we go. And also, another important thing about rural libraries that I want people to know is don't dismiss small and rural libraries because we don't have big budgets.
Right.
Think of ways to include us. Think of things, like you said, think of collaborations or scaled down versions or something. Because we may not have the money, but we want the same thing. So figure out a way to give it to us.
And we may not have the money, and we may not have the expertise all the time, especially like, you know, if you have two people that are the staff of a library, and I think the national average is something like 2.4 or 2.5, something like that, staff in a rural library. So 2 is a really, you know, adequate example. Not everybody's going to have an HR department, a tech department, you know, like marketing department. Like you're still talking about the same guy, the same woman, probably.
The
And
janitor.
the janitor and the, you know, maintenance, and, you know, like, and like it's all the same person. And a lot of times I think bigger people try to partner with a library, they don't realize how much is on that person's plate. You know, they think it's, oh, it's a smaller library, they don't have the problems I have as this big institution or this big, you know. It's like, yeah, no, she's also the, you know, maintenance, she's also
programmer, and
yeah, she's probably doing team programs right now, and, you know, she'll get around to your phone call next time. But that's part of what makes it really an exciting place to work. You get to do a little bit of everything, and you get to be part of solutions, and you get to be looking for those partnerships, you know, and looking for that, you know, other organization that can help you do something tremendous for your community.
Well, I have to say that having been involved with libraries on a national level and associations, that there is a knowledge and expertise that does come from the rural library that is very valuable, because you are doing everything and you are doing everything with less. And I think that everybody has something really great to share, which is another reason why I wanted to do this. Is just there's a lot of, I mean, yeah, when I was director of that little tiny library in the mountains, and I had to learn all about water quality because we had a water fountain, and the only water fountain in the county, you know, I mean, but there are things like that of understanding how everything has to work in a building, where other librarians don't have that experience and don't necessarily realize it until, yeah, they go to smaller libraries. So
we're well-rounded.
we are very well-rounded people. So that is the end of our conversation. I'm hoping we have some questions. So that's right, we do have a poll.
Right, Melissa, I was going to say, I haven't seen any questions come in yet, but we do have a poll. So if everybody that's on this webinar wouldn't mind taking a quick second to answer this question, we'd appreciate it.
I think quite often people don't have questions until they've listened to everything.
Right.
I'll be really interested to see the results from this.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting for this to wrap up, we actually do have a question that came in. What resources do you use to get more information? Who do you all turn to for advice?
Well, one of the places I know a lot of folks turn to is the Association for Rural and Small Libraries listserv. You have access there to 1,000 small and rural librarians, and that, you know, probably somebody's tried what you're trying at least once before, and probably 6 or 7 others have at least an opinion about it.
Yeah, I would have to say that's probably one of the best resources that we have is our listserv, because people will throw it out there and say, hey, I need to know, or what's your policy on this? Anybody have a policy I can share that they can share? And the ARSL website also has a lot of good resources available on it. And our state libraries, I would say if you're lucky enough to have a really great state library, like I know I have one in Arkansas, and I know Colorado is a good one as well. But you got some good professionals there that you can holler at, and especially if it's, you know, something that's specific to your state that you need to know, like
Right.
you know, all those little laws and stuff that matter.
Yeah, and I'll say, having moved to New England, I've seen that there are a lot of regional groups that a lot of the small and rural libraries can take advantage of. Like New England Library Association has large libraries, but a lot of small ones as well. So looking at all those different areas is, yeah.
Okay, we got another question, and this is a good one too. What changes did you make during the pandemic that you would like to keep after the pandemic?
Ooh, that's a good. I will have to say one of the things that we did this year was, of course, all of this happened right before summer reading, which is our major program that we do during the summer, and it hit us pretty hard. And so we decided to create a summer reading fun pack, which would be a booklet for our kids that they could do at home. And because we weren't, well, we were reopened some of this, but anyway, we did it very quickly, had some good help organizing. In fact, it was borrowed by some other people in our state. And we loved it so much that we've already thought about doing it for next year. Even if we still have live programs, that it would still be another resource, maybe for kids whose parents can't bring them to summer reading, that this would still be a way that they could participate. And
Judy, I actually borrowed that from you and shared it with some more ranching communities here, where it's a really long drive to take a kid to town, especially, you know, just for summer reading, and it's harder to do online. So that's definitely one of the
only thing we did was it was for ages 6 to 12, so it had some very easy things and some very harder things. And we think next year, in fact, we have another library system that's actually going to work on it with us, that we're going to do two different ones, one for the younger kids and one for older kids. So
it's something very analog. I like that.
Yeah, but it was just, I said, why haven't we done this before? Because, you know, when you live in the country and your parents work and you may be staying with somebody who can't bring you to the programs. So there's kids that we're missing that we've just never really thought about, before. So that was really
I think
good.
some of the curbside will stay too. Like some of that,
you know,
like, you know, I'm just going to drive by and get my books.
Okay, we have another question. Does ARSL offer grant writing services to rural libraries? That is something that takes time and also something rural libraries and could really use the grants.
That is not a service. No, we usually have lots of sessions. There's usually a session or so on it during conference on grant writing. Somebody usually does something on grant writing. And your state library is really good about helping with that as well. So I will say,
I will say TLC doesn't necessarily offer a grant writing service. However, if you go to our website, there is a grants listing on our website that gives you numerous opportunities to find grants that might fit into the framework of what it is that you're looking for. Sorry to jump in to answer that myself.
I was going to say that.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of those grants that are really easy to fill out as well. They're not the big complicated like LSTA and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Those we like.
Yeah.
Those we like.
Okay.
Right now we're actually, our little story time that story walk that we did outside, we just did with very cheap yard signs and stuff. And now we're working on 2 grants to help pay for the permanent, because they've been utilized so well. So we're actually trying to find grant money for that. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And here I was getting ready to wrap up, and while I was getting ready to, we had another question that came in, and this is a good one as well. It's totally relevant for the times we're in. Do you circulate hotspots or laptops to help increase community options?
I don't. I did look at getting hotspots through TechSoup, which was Mobile Beacon, but there's no service. So, and that was about the only one I could afford. Now I think another AT&T or somebody, I think, has started something. I hadn't checked in on that, but I could actually afford Mobile Beacon, but there's no
service
here. So yeah, that shot that down.
We're having good success. A lot of CARES Act funding has gone towards the purchase of, well, Chromebooks mostly and hotspots. Although some of the communities, again, can't get a hotspot that will that has an connectivity. So it's more hit than miss, but still a little hit or miss.
Yeah, we do have some Chromebooks that are checked out, and so. But again, you got to have the access, of course. But a lot of people sometimes will use their phone as a hotspot. You know,
Right.
really
Right.
needing something.
But you know, it's just been very interesting to me that we do talk about the digital divide and people think that it's shrinking. And I think the pandemic has brought to a head that it is not and has not.
Yeah.
And that the library actually filled in a lot of those gaps. And sometimes even the library can't do that. So I think it's very
one
interesting.
of my libraries, the first day back that school was in session, had five families sitting in the parking lot wanting to do school. And they were going to use, because at that time we were still limited to 1 hour in the library, and they can't, you sit in your car, you know. But
I know like statistics are really boring and kind of hard to follow sometimes, but so about 80% of Americans over the age of 3 are using the internet somewhere, and 5% of Americans, you know, have access to broadband, so 25 down, 3 up, but 22% of rural areas don't have access, and 27% of tribal areas don't have access. So, you know, right there. And then there's always, you know, when it's there, great, but do people adopt it? Do people have those digital literacy skills? And again, that takes a small hit from when you go from an urban community to a rural community. So there's just, I mean,
if there's been anything
you can't
that's
get
come out of,
access, you don't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
That's
I think
what
the
libraries
one good
have
thing
to
that's
be.
come out of the pandemic has been the knowledge that not everyone still has access.
Right.
Yeah.
And we need to do something about it.
There you go, right there. That's it.
I was going to say, that's a pretty good end cap right there on that session.
That's it right there.
So I'm going to button it there. Before we wrap up, on screen, our attendees are seeing the slide for TLC Webinar Wednesday and referring to our next webinar. Melissa, do you want to do a quick tease for next week?
Yes. Next week, we're going to be doing urban libraries, and we have the 2020 Library Journal Librarians of the Year, Christian Zabriskie and Lauren Camito. They also are the founders of Urban Libraries Unite, and they're going to talk about the same things, but from the urban library perspective.
Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all asking us.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun.
All right. Judy, Kieran, and Melissa, thank you all very much for today's session. Everyone who attended, thank you all for attending as well. We definitely appreciate you all taking the interest in this. Everyone, please out there, please stay safe, stay healthy, keep washing your hands, keep masking up, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Bye.